So what's the most important thing about a microphone? It needs to be close to your mouth. So you will see here, you might have heard that a little bit there because I touched it. This is a smaller lavalier microphone. Now, a lavalier microphone, smaller tip, and I've put this little fluffy bit on top of it. This is from a company called Bumblebee. Not Bumblebee, but Bumblebee. The Bumblebee works with different densities of foam, starting out with really wide open foam, and then it becomes denser and denser as it goes in. And you put that over the microphone. Remember to pull it back a little bit so there's an air gap between the top of the Bumblebee or the top of this fur, also known as a dead mouse, between that and the mic. Because what that will do is it'll allow us for sound and for wind to pass across it and penetrate only sound, but the wind stays outside. So what you might have also heard is as I'm pulling on this, you will hear that making noise. Now, the one mistake that I've made with this setup for today is in the cable, normally we put a little bit of a loop. That loop we tape to the person. The reason for that being is that when you pull on the cable, the whole thing can move. So if I move my head, my torso, my whatever, then the microphone can move without the whole cable pulling all the way through my clothing, which creates this sort of scratchy sound. That's one side of it. The other side of it is we don't want wind on a microphone because that detracts from us. So it's going to be, and then we're going to have digital stuff that cuts it all out and all the rest of it. So the other thing we can do is get a nice big diaphragm microphone. So something with a big diaphragm means it's going to pick up slightly lower sound. So I've got a slightly lower voice. So this kind of microphone from Rode, which is really cheap. You guys can get it from next door from Australia. It's about $100. It's one of the cheapest mics on the market, but with great sound, especially if it's a slightly bassy voice. It works really well. So what I do is I've got this little rasterized wind protector on it, and so when I blow against it, you don't really hear it because it cuts the wind across, and the air actually moves away from the microphone while the sound actually travels through. So I'm going to take this little away because I'm not using that right now. I'm using this little microphone, otherwise I wouldn't be able to move around the room. And so mic close to your mouth. Now, how close? 30 centimeters. For those people still in old money, a foot, okay? Anything more than that becomes a problem, all right? Closer, fine, further away, not. Doesn't matter if you've got a directional mic or a shotgun mic or what kind of mic you do, 30 centimeters, max. I mean, singers don't sing with the microphone all the way across the stage. They have it right here in front of their mouths. When we stand on stage and we're working with a hand mic, we have it right in front of our mouths. So why would we want to put stuff on a camera that's 10 meters away and hope we're going to get any sound? It's not going to work. Okay. The closer it is to your mouth as well, the less ambient noise you pick up. So I've got a computer running here, so you might hear that as well, because I haven't switched off the fan there, just so you can see if you can hear that. But I need to cut that out. I also need to cut things out like my breathing. That's a problem. When you get a bit chubbier, your diaphragm tends to get trapped, so you get, it sounds like you're doing a lot of heavy breathing, which is actually not the case. It's just you're too chubby for the mic, right? Or that's my excuse anyway for myself. So think about, where do you place your mic currently? Is your mic part of your mobile phone? Is it part of your computer? So that you're basically picking up the whole room, not just yourself. So you hear those echoes in the room. Now, another way to get rid of those little echoes is bring the mic closer and then dress the room. So there's two ways we need to dress a room. One, we need to absorb sound, and the other one is we need to refract sound. A third one could be to insulate from sound. So insulate from sound is we use heavy blankets and things like that, and duvets and all the rest of it, to keep sound out from outside. So hang it in front of the window like a heavy blanket to stop more noise coming in. Or, what we need to focus on here is, how do I refract sound? Bookcase with lots of books in it. Refract sound beautifully because it breaks up the sound waves so it sounds like it's alive. The room sounds alive. And that is something we're really looking for. But we don't want the echoes where everything is just coming back at the same time. We want to come back at slightly different times. The other thing is we want to absorb sound. So remember, a room has 6 sides, not just the 4 walls. It also has a floor and a ceiling. So traditionally, if your microphone is there or your camera is there, and you're going to look at it, and you're going to have a microphone close to you here. We want the room to be elongated this way. So if it's the room is a rectangle, we want it longer this way and shorter this way. Then what we do is we cover the ceiling and the sides and the floor in absorbent materials. And we cover the opposite wall and the wall behind me in refractive materials. Now, I don't have that option because I'm sitting in a little square room, which is the worst you can possibly get. So I had to put in cupboards on one side, which I've managed to do because the cupboards have helped me to store stuff. And in a small room, that is really important for me anyway. And so what I've done is I've covered the sides with absorbent materials. And all there are literally curtains, thin curtains that I'm just hanging on the wall. And the ones facing the street have also got some blankets on them. And in front of them, the little curtains. The curtains can either be black or white, but you want it a neutral, so that it doesn't create new color for you. So when the light bounces off it, you can use it as a reflector. Same time, it's going to absorb that sound. So sound absorption, and then I've got my sound refraction at the top. Now, it's not ideal, but it's working for me currently. And one day when I'm grown up and have loads of money or too much money, I'll spend it on buying myself a studio or something similar. But for now, I'm working from home because this is the easiest setup for me to work from, and I can take stuff with when I'm going on the road. So if I'm going to see you at the Global Speaker Federation conference, then I will show you how to set up your hotel room. For now, go and think how you would like to set up your microphone at home. One last tip. Microphones are things that pick up a signal coming from your mouth, which usually are vibratory sound sort of things, or sound waves. But microphones are what we call colored. So each microphone adds a little something. There are very few microphones, unless you go to the really expensive ones, that has a neutral sound. So cheaper microphones, especially when they have smaller diaphragms, tend to end up sounding a little bit tinny. The big diaphragm ones pick up everything, right? So you have to find that sweet spot. So what I like at the moment is there's one from Shure, I think it's the M7 or MV7, that I think is quite nice from the specs perspective because it's also relatively neutral. But when you look at the microphone's pickup pattern, look at things like what is it throwing away behind the microphone, what is picking up front, but also look at this little graph. And in that graph, it shows you the frequencies. Now, the human voice's frequency starts about at 50 to 100 at the bottom and ends up at about 20,000. So as a guy, my voice is slightly lower than it would be for a woman, but my S's are quite sibilant, which then pushes that up again. So what you can do is by picking the right microphone, you can change the frequency where the S is too sibilant and bring that down a little bit so you don't sound as sibilant. And at the same time, bring down the lower end a little bit or push it up a little bit to make your voice a little bit more bassy. So for women, when you have and for men, if you have a slightly more reedy or higher tone voice, to get a sense of command or a sense of authority, it's sometimes handy to boost the bass a little bit. And if you get the right microphone for your voice, you don't have to worry about equalizers and everything else. It's always just going to be you and your microphone. So think around this, play a little bit, and if I absolutely possibly can, I will be in the call to take your answers or your questions and answer you directly. Because I'm getting stuck in the back end of nowhere in Ireland with no mobile reception. So I'll drive to the closest town and see if I can get some reception there to be able to talk to you directly as well. So hopefully, till a few seconds from now.